Teaching gender identity lessons to elementary school kids should not happen.
Teachers need to create safe spaces for children to express curiosity and learn about their world.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here is your host and moderator.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We have another interesting topic to discuss. My name is Andrea Luxton. I'm the moderator, and I'm also the president of Andrews University in Michigan. And I'd like you to meet the rest of our panelists.
I'm Bishop Michael Olson, and I serve as the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Dan Levin. I serve as Senior Rabbi at Temple Bethel in Boca Raton, Florida.
I'm Tom Plumley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. I serve at First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas.
And I'm Tony Matthews, and I serve in the area of missions, evangelism, and church planting for a network of churches in Texas.
And now for today's quite challenging topic. According to a State Department reporter and producer at ABC News, the State Department will issue third gender passports for non-binary, intersex, and gender non-conforming Americans. The Secretary of State issued a statement saying that, quote, the Department of State has reached another milestone in our work to better serve all U.S. citizens, regardless of their gender identity. In other news, a transgender swimmer, who is a biological male, competed on the women's swimming team and won the 500-yard freestyle at the NCAA Championships. Cynthia Millen, who sometime before the competition resigned in protest, expressed that it betrays all of the fairness in the sport. So these controversial issues are being discussed and debated around kitchen tables and among proponents and opponents of the topics. Many folks are saying, however, that teaching gender identity to children is taking this a step too far. According to the Daily Mail, quote, first graders in New Jersey will be learning about gender identity with new sex education curriculum, which includes a lesson that teaches children they can have, quote, boy parts but feel like a girl. This article continues by stating, the new lessons, which are part of a broader K-12 health and sex education curriculum adopted by the New Jersey Board of Education, are alarming some parents. Politicians have weighed in on the new sex education guidelines in New Jersey, with a former governor aggressively criticizing the policies. A state senator states that, as a mom and a legislator, I can appreciate the need for students to receive age-appropriate instruction, but this is beyond the pale. So many Americans are asking what's going on. And today we would like our panelists to unravel this and address the following questions. Firstly, in your opinion, why do some people believe it's fine to teach gender identification to first or second graders? Secondly, should children be allowed to make decisions on whether they are male or female? And thirdly, what advice would your religious community offer to those on both sides of the issue? Easy questions. We'll go back to those that began our conversation for their introductory comments.
Well, it's good being here, and people probably already know what I'm going to say before I say it. I just think that again, and let me say parenthetically, I'm a firm believer that you treat people with dignity and respect. We're made in the image of God. I say that consistently on our program, and I just think that we need to love people unconditionally. In addition, the teaching identity lessons in elementary school, I think, is just, I'm in the camp that says that just goes a little too far. I frankly don't understand it. I don't know what would come out of having children at that age to be exposed to different topics, and I didn't bring it to the program, but I did research some lessons, and where they're teaching boys that they may feel like a girl, and some of the things are very explicit that I saw. I just don't know what comes out of that. I think we should let children be children, and my question is, if you take an elementary school kid and you teach them and expose them to this type of curriculum, and then what happens if one of these kids have later on a sex reassignment, and then they find out later on, oh, I made a mistake? I just think it's a lot of harm that can come from this, and frankly, I just don't understand why there's a push for this at this age level. I just have a challenge with it.
Dan.
So I think in some respects, this is one of those instances where you see something that is sort of a rarefied example being like, oh my God, everybody's doing it. And I'm not sure really that's the case. So I would say, and I'll speak for me, I don't think we should be teaching gender identity to first and second graders. I think that's not an appropriate time in life to be discussing those things. I don't know that children should be able to make their own decisions. I think that's part of what it means to live in a family context. But what I would say is that we need to create a couple of conditions in the classroom that will allow teachers the opportunity to talk about what's really going on in the world, to validate what's happening in children's lives, and to allow them to explore and to express their identities in ways that may not be naturally gender conforming. So, for example, I have a friend whose son, when he was little, liked to wear a dress. Why was he wearing the dress? I don't know. He felt like it. And instead of saying, no, you're a boy, you have to wear boy clothes, his mother said, you want to wear a dress? Wear a dress. And after a few months, he got tired of wearing the dress, and he went back to wearing more gender-conforming clothes. And I think that what happens is, if you read the studies of Carol Gilligan and others about how we are very strict in our gender conforming, you have a boy, and within minutes of that boy's life, he is surrounded by trucks and construction workers and firefighters, and girls are surrounded by ballerinas and bows. And if that girl says, well, actually, I want to be a construction worker, we're told, oh, no, you're a girl, right? So I think that if you remember way back in the 1970s, Marlo Thomas put together that beautiful record album called Free to Be You and Me. And there were great little songs like William Wants a Doll, William Wants a Doll, right? About the idea we should let children be children, let them explore their world. And what I'm nervous about is restrictions that say, you're not allowed to talk about these things in the classroom. What if a child walks in and says, well, my two moms say, is he not allowed to talk about the nature of his family? So, as you said, Tony, you believe, and I believe, and I think we all believe in the idea that you need to love people unconditionally. The question is, how do you do that? And I think that restricting what a teacher is allowed to address in a classroom, as it appears, given that a sense of trust in that teacher's ability to say, all right, here's how I'm going to address this with first graders. If the first grader comes in wearing a dress, I think we need to allow for the teacher enough latitude to be able to manage his or her classroom.
Thank you. Tom?
Yeah, the danger is something called gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria has to do with strong feelings of a mismatch between what our body parts say we are and what our insides feel that we are. Yes, it's subjective, but who knows someone else's self-understanding. Psychologists will tell us that sometimes these kinds of this kind of dysphoria, this kind of understanding of a mismatch between who I am and who my body says I am, begins to show up in some children as early as kindergarten. And I'm with Rabbi Levin in thinking that if a child happens to talk about that in class, then a teacher ought to have the freedom to let the child talk about it and not squelch it, not shush it, not lead to some sort of discrimination against the child, either by the teacher or by the other students. You know, because this sort of dysphoria has some specific tells to it. You know, not just a questioning of one's body parts, but a strong disassociation from their genitalia, a desire to get rid of them. Those kinds of feelings of being another gender are not something that can easily be swept under the rug, nor are they something that we as a society should be encouraging people to squelch when they see them in our children. These are distinct minority situations. This is a very small segment of our society. However, when it comes up, it may be a passing phase, like the boy that just wanted to wear a dress for a while and then got tired of it. But it may be something more profound than that. And for speech to be cut off too soon can create damage for that child.
Well, this is a very pressing topic, and I think we've had a very good conversation about this. I think there is, as you mentioned, gender dysphoria, which, you know, there's some aspects, as you mentioned, Rabbi, it's developmental. There's certain phases kids go through, and then they move on to something else, you know, and that, of course, involves just parental patience, guidance, presence. You know, I think what students say in school, kids say a lot of things, you know, too, and they can articulate that. The concern, I think, though, is when a gender ideology enters into the structure of a curriculum and the substance of a curriculum, which is more what are the teachers saying and how are they saying it and what are they then saying to the parents. I think the concerns are oftentimes that, you know, in a school curriculum, in a school community where, you know, you're not allowed to give a kid an aspirin without a note from the parents or anything else. This sort of advice is being advocated by ideologists that separate children from parents, and these are not uncommon anecdotes that we hear from parents themselves and also from students. It is a very small population where this is affected, and people who have an ongoing gender dysphoria have a great suffering and are very vulnerable. And I think they require our care and our patience, but also lead us to ask the question as a society, then what is the significance of chromosomal sex in our biology? What is its meaning societally? I think, you know, we've been able to answer over many years. You mentioned certainly since the 70s and the 60s about gender roles in things like for everything from construction through medicine, dentistry, things that were always presumed to be male roles, you know, are now really of all gender, you know, and aren't seen just simply as male roles. And I think that's good. But when something starts to affect our biology and then also our understanding of how do we respond to a person who's vulnerable, especially children in this, I think the science is still out. There aren't psychologists that are in universal agreement about this, nor are there physicians that are in universal agreement about this. There is a strong ideological argument going on both sides of this question, and I think it's important that we not lose sight of the person suffering from the dysphoria.
Yeah, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and I'm not the dullest one, I don't think, either. I just, I would like to get more information and more than that, an understanding on, you know, the statements, well, you know, how I feel. My body is one thing, but I feel different. I just can't wrap my mind around it. And to Bishop's point about teachers and parents, the Oakland School launches a transition closet. I don't know if we've heard about that, to help students hide gender dysphoria. And basically, the goal of that, the transition closet is for students to wear the clothes that their parents, you know, give them based on their, you know, assignment, their sex assignment. You know, you're a boy, you wear boy clothes. But then when they go to school, there will be a closet where they could change and where the parents won't know about it. And I think my question is, to me, I think this is a movement actually to perhaps undermine or silence the heteronormative behavior. I could be wrong, but you know, it just seems like it's moving in that direction. And having said that, I think, as we all agree, we have to be very careful with children, love them, and whatever they're going through, kind of help them walk through that.
So I think there may be a movement, but it's not the movement about what I think you articulate. I think the movement is, how do we help people not feel marginalized? How do we help people not feel othered? And so I think that there is a movement amongst people in America to say, it's not okay to other somebody. It's not okay to say who you are in your identity is de facto wrong. And I think I remember a conversation I had with a young person, and she was talking about how she was trying on all different kinds of identities. She said, I tried being a jock, I tried being goth, I tried being mean. I tried all these things to try to find out an identity that fit for me. I think that's a big part of what adolescence is about, is trying to figure out where you fit. And so I think the more that we can allow the freedom for children and adolescents to explore what they are without necessarily pushing them or forcing them to conform to a particular path too early, will ultimately, I think, be better for our society, because children will then, as they emerge into adulthood, be able to say, this is actually who I am authentically.
I'll grant the principle. I'm sorry, let me please, we'll be fast. I'll grant the principle. The problem is that that's seldom done in reality among peers. All right, there's usually somebody dominant, somebody's a little ahead of somebody else, whether they're in the same class or even among adults. When you're dealing with the vulnerability of sexuality and sexual identity, people can be prone to suggestion at certain stages of development, and they can be taken advantage of, and even by some very malignant operators, groomed. groomed for abuse. And I think that's also a very large reality in our society that we are just now coming to terms with.
And that's why we need to take a break. Thank you.
We hope you're enjoying today's program. If you'd like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the vision and history of the program, and we invite you to become a ministry partner, explore our Town Hall Estates healthcare facilities, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, we look forward to receiving your letters. You may write us at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. If you have a prayer request, please send it to prayerrequest@americanreligious.org. Thank you for writing and thank you for watching. Now, back to today's closing statements.
Thank you for coming back to join us. As you've heard, this is a sensitive and challenging topic, and we're going back to our panelists to hear their closing comments.
Children are very vulnerable and need to be watched over and assisted and accompanied in their development, first and foremost by their parents, especially in healthy relationships between parents and children, but also then with teachers and peers. The idea of gender dysphoria is a very real thing. Sometimes it's among the period of development in a child's life. Other times it can be extended and can be a cause of great suffering of someone not being at home with their body. We need to help and assist people who go through this extended period. We need to listen to them and not marginalize them and certainly not bully them. And also we need to think about what is the relevance of biological chromosomal sex, not only for an individual person, but also for our society, not only as it relates to gender, but as it relates to the common good and the stability of family life.
Thank you. I think the two most important words that are in the moderator's statement are sex education. I'm just pleased that someone is taking the initiative to do some. We have too many people that have been taught sex in inappropriate ways, in inappropriate places, by inappropriate people. When we put our children in schools, they are thrown into the social world, into the social mix. They will have times when they need to talk about, in regard to this particular issue, about bathrooms, about bullying, about name changes, and all sorts of things. There are age-appropriate, there are ages at which those things are appropriate. But at all times, our children need to be taught tolerance, need to learn to understand gender, and need to understand orientation and learn respect for each other.
Chuck Swindoll wrote a book years ago titled "Parenting is Not for Cowards." And wow, I am praying for parents. You know, my wife and my kids, our children are grown, and I just know that this is a challenge, and we love our children. We love kids, we love our children, and there are so many challenges. I'll close with three quick things, and I am just regurgitating some very good articles that I read. I think first we need to affirm our child's biological sex and their corresponding gender identity. I think affirming God's creation of a child is the way to go. Second, we need to give our children focused attention and appropriate affection. Whenever they're going through a problem or if they have any type of identity issues, we need to meet those issues and those challenges and meet them with grace and love. And I think it was Brother Tom that mentioned that we should not bully. I think all of us would stand up for anyone. You know, any person, no matter who they are, what they are, their orientation should not be bullied. I'll be the first one to stand in line to go street ministry on anyone who messes with children, no matter who they are.
I personally would not want to be on the wrong side of your street ministry. So I'm reminded that in the book of Genesis, in chapter 1, when the Holy One creates human beings, it says, and so God created humanity in God's image. In the image of God was humanity created, male and female, God created them. And in interpreting that passage, the rabbis 2,000 years ago said the original human being was androgynous. It had male and female. It actually describes a being that had no back, that it had a male countenance on one side, a female countenance on the other side, and then later God separated that into separate male and female beings. But I think about that midrashically because I think that there are elements in our conscience of both male and female. And I think that the way that those sensibilities, the way that those pieces of our soul manifest themselves sometimes don't conform with the biology that that soul inhabits. And I think we need to be very, 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 very careful about how we nurture each and every one of our souls. Sometimes it may be that in order to nurture that soul, we have to allow for that transition of the biology of that person from what was at birth to what the soul demands. But I think that what I'm hearing everyone saying, what I would say is the most important thing that we can possibly do is nurture the developing and emerging souls of our children as they make their way towards adulthood.
Thank you. I have a feeling that this is a conversation that is going to continue after the show has ended, maybe even in this group, but certainly maybe in your own homes and in your own environment. It is a very difficult conversation. You've heard a range of positions here from our panelists. I think where everyone stands together is the importance of the souls of each of our children. I think where we may vary is to see how that impacts people at different ages and how you should be responsive on one hand versus proactive on the other hand. Where does all that come in? Where is the appropriate age? Elementary is a huge range. So we pass this over to you now for your further thoughtful, prayerful consideration. The Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory but in reality. And so now, friends, until next week at the same time and over the very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.